Hi, this is Miss Daria, and I'm filming a video about the difference between adding decimals and multiplying decimals. So let's begin with adding decimals. So with adding decimals, the most important thing that you want to focus on is lining up your decimal points. You want to make sure that you're adding wholes with wholes, tenths with tenths, hundredths with hundredths. Let's just review quickly the place value chart. Here's a decimal point, and here's your wholes, your whole numbers, and then you have tenths, hundredths, and of course thousandths. So make sure you've got that under your belt before you begin trying to add decimals. So let's just turn this over and begin. So let's take it easy and start with something like 4.6, let's make that nice and dark there, plus 7.8. So that's in horizontal form, horizontal meaning across. So we have to work with it in vertical form. So again, I'm going to make that nice and dark there. Okay, notice I've lined them straight up, the decimal points. So then we can add as usual. So we'll add 6 plus 8 to be 14. Carry the 1. And this will be 5. 5 plus 7 is 12. And you can estimate and see if that makes sense. 4.6 is about 5. 7.8 is about 8. So let's see, 5 plus 8 would be 13. So 12 sounds like a reasonable answer. So I would say check on that one. Let's look at something a little different, where you have a number like 2.3 plus, let's say, let's keep it simple, 5.06. Well, a common mistake, make sure you note that this is a mistake, would be to line them up like this. Take a moment to realize why that's incorrect. And a lot of you may be saying, well, it's a mistake because the decimals don't line up. But more importantly, it's because here's a tenths, 3 tenths, and you're adding it to 6 hundredths. So how can that be? That's very, very difficult to do and not really what we want to get into. So let's put a big X through that. And let's do it correctly. So we'll do 2.3 and 5.06. If it makes you more comfortable, you can add a placeholder. Please don't put the placeholder in between the decimal point and 3. Now you're making 2.3, 2 wholes and 3 tenths, into 2 wholes and 3 hundredths. The placeholder always goes at the end, if that's what you're comfortable with. So we have a 6, we have a 3, and we have 7. Again, you can round just to check your answer. 2.3, I would round that to 2. 5.0, that's about 5, so 2 plus 5 is about 7. So I like that estimation and I like that answer, so that would be a good way to check. Okay. Now, let's look at multiplying. So this is multiplying with multiplying, you don't need to line up decimal points. Many students do that and cause themselves much grief by adding a whole bunch of zeros that they don't need to. So let's take our first example with addition. I'm going to take the two very nice and neat numbers, 4.6 times 7.8. In this case, the decimal points do line up, but in the future we'll see that they don't have to. So 8 times 6, 48. 4 times 8 is 32. Plus 4, 36. Now, don't put your decimal point in the partial product. Leave it until the end. Now, we're done with this number, and now we're going to start multiplying by 7. That you need your placeholder for. That's the same thing with multiplying whole numbers. So 6 times 7 is 42. 7 times 4 is 28. Plus 4, 32. Notice I didn't put any decimals in my partial product either here. So 8, 8, 5, and 3. Now is the point where you want to put your decimal point in. Notice there is one place here behind the decimal, one number, one digit, and one here. So how many do we have all together? 2. So we're going to count 1, 2. So again, let's take a look at just estimating a little bit. 4.6 is about 4 and 5-ish. You've got 7.8 is about 8. So let's take 5 times 8 would be 40. So does 35 make sense? Sure it does. If I had put my decimal point here, I have 358. That sure doesn't make sense. If I put it here, I have 3 holes and some decimal number behind it. That sure doesn't make sense either. So the decimal point here, I gave it a check. So let's take a look at the other two numbers we worked with addition. 2.3 times 5.06. I've seen so many students cause themselves zero grief, like what I like to call that, or a zero problem by doing the following. Now, is this wrong? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. You will get the same product as you would if we were to do it the much easier way. But there's so much more work in here. More work. And I'm going to put a frowny face here. Why do we want to do more work? Don't we want to do things the quickest way? So, boo on that. So let's do, this has 3 digits and this has 2. Actually, I'm not sure if you can see that. Let's rewrite it. 2.3 times 5.06. So, like I said, this has 2 digits. This has 3. So the best way to go about handling this, you can switch in multiplication. Same thing in addition. So I'm going to put this factor on top. We can do that and get the same product. So I'm going to put my 2.3 here. Why not? And notice my decimal points are not lined up. They don't have to. And let's go through the multiplication just as we would with whole numbers. So 6 times 3, 18. 0 times 3 is 0, plus 1, 1. 5 times 3, 15. Again, no decimal point in the partial product. So we've used the 3. Let's move on to this. We need a placeholder. 6 times 2 is 12. 0 times 2, 0. Plus the 1, 1. 5 times 2 is 10. Notice I still haven't used any decimal points in my product. So I'm going to add vertically 6, 1, 1. And I have 2 places here and 1 more. So how many do I have altogether? I have 2 plus 1 is 3. So from the right, 1, 2, 3. And again, we can use some estimation to check our answer. So 5.06, that's about 5. Would you agree? And 2.3, that's about 2. So 5 times 2 is 10. Would you say 11 is pretty close? I would think so. If the decimal point were here, what are we looking at? 116. Would 5 times 2 be 116? That doesn't make any sense. If I put the decimal point here, I've got 1 point blah blah blah. Well, 1 doesn't sound like 2 times 5 at all. And again, you can move the decimal around, say here, we have 1,163. Goodness, 2 times 5 certainly is not going to get us in the thousands. So this looks like the perfect place to be. So put a check there. So again, in multiplication, you don't need to line up your decimals. You just need to remember to count how many decimal places, how many digits are behind your decimal point. If you have to keep track of it on the side, certainly you can just put a 2 here. Here's 2. And you can have a 1 here. And your total is 3. So you can know that in your answer, you would have 3 places. 1, 2, 3. And again, start from the right, most importantly. So try some out in the workbook or the textbook that you haven't been assigned. See how it works out. Again, you can even check your answers on your own by using a little estimation. And again, 2 times 5 is about 10. Well, 11 sounds a whole lot like 10.